My wife and I have been watching what I think is a wonderful series. I guess that's probably what you would call it today. Not a movie, an hour episode, 9 episodes of a series called Masters of the Air. I don't know if you've seen it or seen parts of it. It's produced by Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks. Masters of the Air is a true story about the 100th Air Wing of the United States Army Air Corps. They would eventually be referred to as the Bloody 100th because of the losses they would incur. I believe it is on one particular mission out of 37 aircraft, only one returned, each plane carrying 10 crew members. I love this series so much, not only because it's true, but because I love history. And I love it because I love airplanes, believe it or not. They profile what they flew. They flew the B-17 Flying Fortress. I didn't know that. In fact, that this particular plane was actually built in 1935, I think it was. This particular bomb wing is assigned or based in England, where a big part of the war will go to Germany to try to win the war. There is a scene in the series where one of the pilots, a Jewish American by the name of Robert Rosenthal, is shot down over Germany, and he's rescued by the Russians on the front lines. He's being returned to an Air Force base to then fly to Moscow. From Moscow, he will fly back to England to rejoin the 100th Air Wing. And on the way to this particular airfield, his convoy has to stop because of an obstruction in the road. So he asks, "Can I get out and stretch my legs?" Which he does. And he walks a distance and walks into a particular area, unbeknownst to him, that is a concentration camp. So here he is, this wounded pilot who's been rescued. He's being brought back to be sent back to England. He has to stop. He gets out, he goes for a walk, and he walks into, unbeknownst to him, an abandoned concentration camp. It's a powerful scene in the series where he goes in by himself and comes across in the back of the camp many, many, many dead Jews who were left behind. Some were partially burned. Some were in particular ways just a place that you would almost, your throat, you just had this huge compassion for what you were witnessing. I remember as we were watching this, you could hear a pin drop. He, Robert Rosenthal, had stumbled into what you would probably say is pure evil. Something that he didn't know about and something he couldn't comprehend. When he finally arrives back in England to his original base, he is met by his friend, Harry Crosby, who is now a major. Harry Crosby had flown with him or in the 100th as a navigator, but now was staying behind. And they spend an evening together catching up. And Harry Crosby is telling Rosenthal how much he is tired of the war, and he is tired of the killing, and that he's worried that he might become like those they are fighting. And he says, "I see no good reason for what we are doing anymore." I suppose one could say, yes, there is no good reason for war, but he has had enough, and he sees no reason, and he can't get his arms around it any longer. But as he is speaking to Rosenthal, we all know as an audience what Rosenthal has witnessed. We all know what he's seen. And we all wanted to, I can remember sitting on the couch saying to my wife, I just want to yell. There's something more, there's something that you're not seeing that we're fighting for, that you're giving your life for, that it is so deep, you would not believe it. And then I'm finding myself sitting there saying, say it. I want to speak, I want to yell to Rosenthal, say it. We want you to say it. We want you to tell him what you've seen. There's something that you cannot believe that you're fighting for. As an audience, we knew. And with this long introduction, I couldn't help but think about the Paschal mystery as we approach it. When we look at the cross, it seems sometimes to be such a riddle. Father Romano Guardini will ask the question, what did Jesus' dealings, his struggles, his life add up to? He would even go so far as to say, might someone say, failure. After all, he comes from Nazareth, and as we've heard, nothing good comes from Nazareth. It comes from poverty, and the Messiah lives a life of obscurity, and his life is shortened, and he will be betrayed by one of his own for a few pieces of silver. And his own people will prefer a murderer, a robber, to be released to them, and Jesus crucified. And for what? Why? He was innocent. So then we ask, is there more? Are we missing something? And Guardini tells us to look deeper, to examine the struggle going on in the plane of the invisible, beneath the events of history, against the forces of the demon. What do you see when you look at the cross? What do we see? Do we stop at the surface of it? Or can we dig deeper into it? If we dig deeper into it, what will we find? St. John Henry Newman writes, the surface of things are bright, but there is not only suffering in the cross, but there is a hidden doctrine that lies under a hidden veil. In the depths of the cross, we find the truth that in Jesus' suffering and death, we find our redemption. When we dig into the cross and go deeper, we see the place of the nail marks, his wounds and his blood there, and through them, we are healed. In the cross, we see the Father glorified and the Son glorified by the Father. In the depths of the cross, we find who we are, Christians, his followers. When we look at the cross, we see the depth of love that we all experience. When we look at the cross, we see ourselves, if we go deep enough. We see our sin, our darkness, our wounds. We see the events of our lives that have split us in two. And we see the things that are not healed. And when we look at the cross, there is a question. Why? Why not only is this happening to you, Jesus, but why is this happening to me? Are we seeing the whole picture? For in the cross, when we dig deep, we find life. And in the cross, we find surrender. And we find the answer to the whys of our life. And we find healing and we find forgiveness. On this last Sunday of Lent, we find Easter is waiting for us. Easter is waiting for us. The entire picture, the whole picture of it will be revealed. And we will hear it shouted from the heavens. There is more. There is a reason. There is more. Tell them. Tell them.